Dear friends, welcome to this video session on the problem solving, and one of the methods that we are going to look in this particular video lecture is constructive controversy, and I am Mrunal Lamge. So let's understand what is constructive controversy. I'm sure when we look at what it is, it might sound familiar because this actually happens at times in our own lives in the ways like before we get into that, what is constructive controversy, if you have to look at, is it is improving solutions by arguing for and against the options. Now that's what I was referring to, that isn't it that we do in our life? We want to maybe take a certain decision and we are not sure. We do have an opinion about the decision that this is the right decision. However, we certain times have this doubt and we feel like checking with others, asking for their feedback, asking for what they feel. Maybe they have certain experience of their own to share that might actually improve your own decision making. So this particular method, how this gets used even in the corporate world or in the management world as a method of problem solving. So here is what is called as the constructive controversy. What do you think about this as a way ahead? Isn't it we ask sometimes these questions? Can I get your feedback on this? Do you think this will work? These are raised as questions, as doubts, and these questions seek to gain more clarity and more understanding from others. So usually we tend to consider others, especially when we have a problem or a decision to be made. These are the two broad categories. Now we realize that we have limited perspectives based out of our own experiences, based out of our own understanding, and based out of our own exposure towards life, towards work experience, or any other experience in life. Sometimes we realize that the best solution from one vantage point or from one perspective may no longer seem so after we have seen a fuller picture. Isn't it true? So what is the approach to constructive controversy? Involving other people which or who have inevitable different perspective and views. We realize that, and especially so because they have inevitable different perspectives, we tend to seek people to ask their opinion depending on in which field we are seeking an opinion, in which particular domain are we seeking their perspectives. So we rightly choose the people to ask for their feedback or for their opinion while we are trying to make a decision. This particular method actually helps us to look at solutions from the all possible sides, so we don't miss any of the very important aspect, and that too at a very early stage. So which is this powerful technique for managers? So what we do is, if we have to ask what is the best way to draw on people's experience, how do we use that? Constructive controversy is a powerful technique which managers can employ to use for their own benefit, for their own understanding, and for better decision making. So the objective of constructive controversy is test a proposed solution by subjecting it to the clash of ideas, intellectual ideas, showing it either to be wrong or proving it or improving it. So these could be three broad major categories that you can have a clash of ideas, and we certainly tend to have this when we intellectually want to improvise on what are our perspectives. What is the origin of this particular method of problem solving? This was introduced by Mr. David Johnson and Mr. Roger Johnson in the year 1979. Now this particular method is very well researched and validated and is recognized as a leading model for developing robust and creative solutions to problems. This is so because this is applied at various industries, and each of these various industries, it has proven to be very effective, to be creative, and to be used very, very systematically. So what is constructive controversy? We have understood a little bit that it is about, improvising by debating for or against the options that we have. Let's understand a little bit more about what is constructive controversy. So it draws on 5 assumptions, or the 5 key assumptions. Let's look at them one by one. The initial perspective that we have towards a problem or towards a situation that we are trying to solve is based very much on our personal experience and our personal perceptions. So a person having a certain experience, a number of years of experience, would have a certain perspective. I think you can reflect in our own lives. So a particular perspective about even our career, when we started our career, or having the perspective on a career maybe 10 years into a career, would be vastly different. So this is the initial perspective, that is one of the assumptions that is taken into account for this method. Second, persuading others to agree with us strengthens our belief that we are right. Isn't it so? The more we try to have a particular perspective and the more we tend to have the discussion on that, we tend to actually gain more confidence and more, you can say, self-assurance and belief that this is the right one. So this is the second assumption. Now when we are discussing and then a competing viewpoints start coming from the people that we discuss with, that is where we start doubting our rationale if the other person's perspective are competing with our own viewpoints. And that is where we tend to question things. That is where we tend to look at things from a very different perspectives, which is their perspective and not always from our perspective. The fourth assumption is the doubt. It causes us to seek more information and build a better perspective because we want to be confident with our own choice. Now, when we start having this doubt whether the decision that I am planning to make is not maybe accurate, as you tend to have that fuller picture as you have seen, I think that doubt is very, very proactive. That doubt is very creative because it actually gives you an opportunity to look at from the other person's perspective and actually question that, actually debate with that person to tend to get to the right decision. It searches for a fuller perspective, and this particular search for a fuller perspective leads to better overall decision making. So, what's the constructive controversial cycle? How does it look like? Well, it starts from here. If you have to put it in a particular diagram, it would look like this. You state your case, that could be the situation, a problem, or the decision you want to make, followed by your different conclusions. Have the discussion with others who have different perspectives and different kind of looking at things, and use their experiences. When that kind of a process starts happening, when some of the viewpoints are absolutely contradictory to your own viewpoints, but seemingly sounds to be very true in terms of addressing that problem or helping you make a decision in a right way, you start feeling uncertain about your own stance. And it's a good phase because you are actually opening up your mind to the other perspectives and you are trying to understand with reason and logic how that is so, how that is also true. And that leads to search for a better understanding of looking at the problem and having the right understanding that would help you choose and make the right decision or the best possible solution to choose from. And then after that better understanding, it obviously leads to a better conclusion. However, this particular cycle is not necessarily that it ends in one cycle. The more times you go through the cycle, the closer you come to the truth or the right solution. So at times you might have to go through a number of times, because one cycle will bring you to a next level of understanding where maybe your 50% doubts are cleared. If you go through that cycle another time, maybe that would complete and bring to you 100% confidence that yes, you are choosing a right solution. Now, what are the uses of constructive controversy? It helps creating better solutions compared with solving problems using consensus or a debate or individual effort. It happens so because constructive controversy actually forces you to face your assumptions, to actually deal with your assumptions and avoid drawing conclusions very quickly. It allows you to stay a little in a state of in between, a hanging state where you don't want to be absolutely certain in taking a decision, and you allow that doubt maybe in your mind to actually see how that can get addressed on its own. And that is where the other people's thoughts and ideas start actually incubating that doubt in a positive way to such that it is resolved. It pushes you to use clear reasoning to defend or argue against a position. And this particular debate from arguing for and arguing against helps to protect you from your own logical fallacies and the blind spots, something that we tend to miss unknowingly, something that we are not even aware that we are missing or not taking into account certain factors, certain parameters. That's what we mean by blind spots. Because this process actually forces you to explain and defend your rationale. So how do you create constructive controversy? So constructive controversy is not simply about arguing. It's not simply about having a fight for the sake of it. So it is about not simply arguing and creating conflict for its own sake, but it is a formal procedure to manage controversy in a positive way. And to make that happen, it has to have certain structure to it. So what are the steps if you have to carry a constructive controversy as a problem solving method in your organization or in your business or in your life in general? The step one is brainstorm possible solutions to the problem. So brainstorming is one of the problem solving methods you might be aware of, or if you're not, you can be aware of that. There are certain video lectures on brainstorming also. So it is a process where you tend to bring people in a very creative, relaxed atmosphere to come out with as much creative and as much radical ideas to address that problem without questioning whether they are feasible or not. That's the process of brainstorming. And then the remaining process is basically to arrive at the right kind of option. So in constructive controversy, you start with brainstorming to create radical ideas that addresses the problem, creative ideas that addresses the problem. Then you form advocacy teams within the team. So the advocacy teams are the teams who are given each alternative which probably have come out of the brainstorming session, and after the brainstorming session, if there are say 3 particular ideas that are being shortlisted to be the right ones to address the issue or the right ones to address the problem at hand, then each advocacy team, or there needs to be 3 advocacy teams then, to basically take each of this option and given a choice and a chance to start researching it and start proving its validity. Then they have to present what is the best case scenario and why that alternative should be chosen. The step 3 is engage in constructive controversy. So when you engage and when the topic is constructive controversy, the chances are you would tend to get into more of a fight, more of a conflict kind of a mode. Now here, what is very, very important is to be aware that this is just a method and we don't need to get flown, into the kind of a momentum of getting that controversy or proving your particular stance or proving your point right all the time. So there is certain maturity that would be required here, and that can be developed. The more you tend to practice it, I think that maturity develops. So the step 3 is engage in constructive controversy, where each of the team presents its case, presents its option, where they have researched, where they have found a logical deductions to why that particular option is the right option to the wider group. And the sole objective of this is to help the group understand the particular choice, why that choice being the right choice. And they have to try to convince through their arguments, through their presentation, and convince the people of its validity. At this point, the other teams who are the audiences gets an opportunity after the presentation to argue against that position. So what happens as a result is an open discussion that starts happening, and the presenting team now listens to the counter arguments from the listeners. Having researched and having a firm faith in their particular option, the presenting team tries to disprove them by using logical thinking. It's not disproving them for the sake of disproving. It's not disproving them just because you are feeling hurt that they are actually arguing against your point. I think that maturity we have been talking about, that we need to have. And this particular presenting team defends its original position as best as it can. And the emphasis obviously is on logic and critical thinking. Now here it is very important to remind the teams about the overall objective is to gain a better perspectives on all the options, so that this helps to make the best decision possible. So it encourages them to ask for solid data. Solid data meaning a data which can't be argued against, something which is based in facts or something which is based in maybe the truth of the matter, or something which has been absolutely proven beyond doubt that it works. It pushes the team to defend its own conclusions. The next step could be, that would be very, very helpful, is using the 5 whys techniques, another problem solving method, which is a great tool for exploring someone's positions. Now this particular technique is been used or was originated and adopted by Toyota Production System as one of the very powerful method, where a particular question about the end result has been asked, and why that is happening, the question is asked, and the answer that is given to this first why and second why is asked for that particular answer. And that second why leads to another answer, which is a third answer, and then a why to that answer actually leads to the fourth answer, and then similarly there are 5 whys asked. And this 5 why technique is extremely powerful. It actually challenges your critical thinking to a deep level. And the 5 why is not a compulsory that you have to use 5 times, but it is a kind of a measure about your persistence in asking the why and not settling for whatever the answer they are given and assuming that that is the absolutely at the core or that is at the root of it. You still use your persistence to question that assumption that this is the fact. So you use it to the time where till the time you come to the root cause of that particular problem. So if you happen to come to a root cause after asking say 3 whys, I think it's fine. But still the technique is called as the 5 why technique. The next team, after the presenting team has happened, starts and comes and now they present their alternative and their research and their findings about why their alternative is the best. So this particular method of each team coming and presenting about their alternatives, defending it with logic, with their critical thinking, and after they have presented, the rest of the group having taken all the inputs to actually get a wider perspective and gain a better understanding, counter argues their particular stand. And again the presenting team defends that, and in this process each team presents their own alternatives, they try to defend it, and this process actually helps to gain a whole or a holistic picture or a fuller picture where you might have started gaining certain insights and you might have started realizing certain blind spots in your own perspective that you have probably not researched your particular solution to the absolutely the fundamentals, getting to the fundamentals of it or getting to the root cause of it. After this presentation, the first presentation have happened, now the very funny thing happens is now the team starts reversing their position. So the team who have presented a particular solution, they argue for the one of the options they originally tried to argue against. So this is a complete role reversal, and this is something that tends to change people's perspective so dramatically that it really challenges their thinking, it really challenges their views about looking at things, it really actually changes their complete domain in which they were feeling so confident in presenting their alternative. This actually leads to gaining new understanding and gaining new insights, and which is a very, very powerful takeaway of the process. Now there is a caution, there is a particular note, is that now you can repeat this step so that everyone has an opportunity to argue for each alternative. However, there could be a constraint of limited time, and if in that particular constraint, it's good to narrow the choices between two possible options before you start this step so that there are only two advocacy teams. So you have to take a call whether you would like to continue with having multiple advocacy teams or just starting with the two best options that you need to decide between the two, and then go ahead and do this process when the time is a constraint. This is a particular note that you might like to keep in mind. And the final step is obviously to decide on which is the route to follow. So here the teams drop the advocacy roles and they tend to bring the group together to make a final decision. Now this is where you might, while be competing, might feel like the other people are your opponents, but here again you come collectively like you are part of one team. You are not two different groups having two different interests. You become a part of one team and then look at how do we arrive and decide the one solution. You take time to explore what people have learned from the constructive controversy process. As I said, it really shakes you in terms of when you change your perspective and you start arguing for something which you were supporting your viewpoints, and that is a huge shift in terms of your thinking, in terms of your confidence, in terms of having a radical perspectives about things. It really is a shift. So people actually grow in terms of their own potential. They grow in their maturity. They grow in their decision making. They grow in having an attitude of being open towards other people's perspective. And the sole objective becomes focusing on what is the best possible solution and not what's the alternative that I have chosen. it really shows a great maturity in doing that. It brings together ideas to create a final proposal. Now, a useful tip here would be that make sure that you evaluate this proposal to ensure that the outcome of this process is better than the status quo, or certainly the outcome should be better than what currently is what currently is the state of affairs. Here the objective is not that you tend to spend a lot of money and hard work just to make the situation worse, and that would be really tragic. So that's a tip that you need to be aware of. If there are no rules, I think things might not run smoothly. Be it rules at the games or be it rules in some management techniques like this. So for making an effective constructive controversy, it's equally important to have certain rules to this process. That these rules actually then would ensure that your process of constructive controversy is fruitful. So let's look at what are some of the rules. So what is important is to lay down some ground rules, something which everyone has to abide by. So people need to work together in a positive and a cooperative environment, or they need to work together in a positive attitude with cooperation being shown together. The entire focus has to be during this debate happening is to arrive at the best possible solution. One caution that people need to have is if they start competing with one another, then they probably would get influence that they need to win at all cost. So you tend to really be aware that you are not carried away by this feeling. And because if they get into drawn that they have to win at all cost, they are likely to create problems between the advocacy teams than improve their collective understanding. Please be cautious. Ensure that the participants do certain things. What are those? They demonstrate mutual respect at all times. That is very important, because here in the advocacy teams there would be people from all the rankings. So you need to have respect for each individual and not respect towards the position per se. So even though somebody is presenting, a junior person presenting to a senior, you need to have respect when you are arguing. You should not get that debate into anger. You should not get that debate into an ego clash. That has to be a very important cautioning point. Another very important point is criticize ideas and not people. So when people talk and share their ideas, see to it that they are coming from their own experience and perspective, and they are not necessarily actually bad people, because those ideas are clashing with your ideas. So you need to be aware that I would like to actually criticize the ideas and not the person from where the ideas are coming from. It's very important, because in the flow of that entire process, you might tend to lose this. And being human, it might happen. So just be cautious. The entire focus again has to be good decision making and not winning. Now listen actively and ask for clarification when necessary. So listen actively in the sense, see to it that you are not only looking at the words. Maybe there are certain aspects, certain beliefs, certain values that are making them probably say what they're saying. Tend to seek some understanding why they feel that. Listen actively. And commit to an understanding of an issue from all the sides of the issue. Don't leave any particular side of an issue unchecked, unverified. Be willing to change positions when the evidence suggests it's necessary. Now that is very, very important. So you need to have a slightly loose hold on the alternative that you are suggesting, where if you see certain facts, certain evidences, you should be flexible enough to change your sides and probably agree to the other person's point. Please use rational arguments and draw conclusions based on evidence and well-structured reasoning. This actually would help you in creating a particular respect for one another when you use rational arguments rather than coming from being right all the time. So if you look at the entire process, what could be some of the key points that we can take away? Constructive controversy is an effective tool for developing well-rounded solutions to problems, because we tend to look at an issue from all the sides. If this particular method is used in the right kind of a setting, it can ensure that participants have the skills to manage this type of structured conflict. And as I said, the more times this particular method is applied, it would tend to bring the maturity of the people, it would tend to bring the more presence in the people to be aware that they are not stuck to the viewpoints, they are not criticizing people, they are actually criticizing ideas, and they are doing so not coming from their ego or the status quo, or they are coming from actually using critical thinking and critical reasoning. This particular diagram, if I ask you, there are two horizontal lines, one on the top and the another one is below that. If I ask you which particular horizontal line is longer and which particular horizontal line is shorter, the answer most commonly could tend to be that the top line is longer and the bottom line is shorter. However, this is just a matter of perspective, because if you really see, both these lines are absolutely same in the length. Now this is what in life we tend to actually see the same line but have a different perspective, and we can even stick and argue and say that my perspective is right, this is a longer line, this is a shorter line. But mind it, the thing is, it is just a matter of perspective. These arrows, actually open arrows on the outside, tend to give you a perspective that the line is longer, and these two arrows on the inside of that line tends to give the feeling that the line is shorter. Isn't it so with at certain things in our life also? It can actually, you can say, tint our way of looking at things. So one of the important things is, please do adopt different perspectives to gain a better understanding of the problem as a whole. Be open for that. If this openness is been shown, it actually contributes to significantly improved solutions. We realize that constructive controversy is time consuming and maybe a highly structured process. Now, if it is to be used to tackle a significant problem, then the benefits can be enormous. In a small way, you can even think and look at that you can apply this to your own life. If you want to practice, if you just want to start building the muscle in using this particular method. So, start practicing constructive controversy on a smaller scale. When can you do that? If that's a question. Especially you can do that when the time and circumstances don't allow for a fully structured event. So you want to use a shorter version maybe. Now when the impact of the solution is far reaching enough, then it justifies more investigation. Or you have to make a decision on your own, then or check its validity before implementing it. You can actually tend to use maybe a shorter version of this particular constructive controversy. How you can do that? Maybe you can ask one or more of your colleagues to help you by proposing an alternative to the stance or to the position you are taking to solve that problem, or you are taking to take a decision. Now they can choose that alternative whether or not they truly believe that it is a better option. And you can proceed now with a small scale constructive controversy process, which is arguing for and against the options that you have created. So you start presenting and defending your choice, and your colleagues or they defend their own choices, or they do the same for their own choices. If you don't want them to actually take up an alternative which is different than yours and they have to defend, they can simply actually play a role of a devil's advocate. I think this is in small ways we do use in our own life, in our own working life. It could be at professional level or personal level, that we tend to sometimes be honest and truthful by being a devil's advocate. Here again, the objective or the focus is because we want to arrive at the right or the best solution or the best decision making. So similarly, your colleague can do this. They can simply argue against your choice as you presented. Now, using elements of controversy, it helps you to gain a wider perspective of the situation. It improves your overall creative problem solving, and this realization alone can help you solve problems more effectively. So friends, are you ready to check what are some of the learnings of this particular video session? I'm sure you are. I'm sure you must have been going through how did we begin, what controversial or constructive controversy is, and what are the certain steps, what are the certain ground rules, what are some of the benefits of this particular problem solving method, what's the process if you have to do it in a particular structured way. I think we have learned all of that, and let's check some of the understandings or the learnings that I'm sure have remained with you. Let's see whether you can solve this fill in the blanks. You can simply do is write numbers 1 to 4 and only tend to write the fill in the blank words. So against 1, what do you think are the fill in the blank words? And then you can check whether your answers are correct or not. So are you ready with your paper and a pencil, or a paper and a pen? Alright, let's look at it. Constructive controversy, improving solutions by dash for and dash your options. I'm sure that sounds very similar. Maybe it was right there on slide number 1. Number 2, constructive controversy's objective is test a proposed dash by subjecting it to the dash of ideas, showing it to be either wrong, proving it, or improving it. Number 3, this problem solving approach was introduced by David Dash and Roger Dash in dash. Number 4, constructive controversy steps. Number 1, dash possible solutions to the problem. Form dash teams to present one alternative. Point number 3, dash in constructive controversy. Number 4, bring the group together to make a final dash. These were the steps of carrying out constructive controversy. Are you ready with your answers? If you have written your answers, let's check whether they are correct or they are incorrect. Let's check it out. So the number 1 is constructive controversy is improving solutions by arguing for and against your options. Number 2, constructive controversy's objective is Test a proposed solution by subjecting it to the clash of ideas, showing it to be either wrong, proving it, or improving it. Number 3. This problem solving approach was introduced by David Johnson and Roger Johnson in the year 1979. And if you have to remember the process, what are the steps of it? Let's look at it. So constructive controversy steps are: 1. Brainstorm possible solutions to the problem. Number 2. Form advocacy teams to present one alternative. Number 3. Engage in constructive controversy. This is nothing but start the process of constructive controversy. And number 4. Bring the group together to make a final decision. With that, we have come to the end of the video session of constructive controversy. I hope you have enjoyed it and also have learned some of the important learnings of the session. So keep applying, keep learning. Thank you.